Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and today we're going to be starting a new series, the What We've Been Playing series. Now, once we jump into this, I do want to say please leave as many comments as you'd like in the description below. Let me know if you like the format of this video, if this is something that you like, something that you enjoy, and like the format in general. Any comments, critiques, concerns, I'd love to hear what you have to say. Now, we're going to go ahead and try to get my thoughts on each of these games I've played in about a minute here. I've played a lot of games this last week, and this is from the week of the 27th of September to the 3rd of October. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump into these games. Now, the first game that I want to talk about is The Crew Mission Deep Sea. Now, The Crew here is a sequel to an already very popular game, The Crew, the Quest for Planet 9. This one here, though, offers these new objective cards into the game. And right off the bat, this is going to be the reason that I love this version of The Crew over the original. The original Crew, it rewarded lots of repeat plays, playing this with the same group over and over again, getting to harder levels. This one, though, does a great job of being able to pick it up and play it and just play a couple games and put it away. The way it does it is with this mission system. Instead of having a mission book, you will have a mission book still, but generally it's going to give you a number of these cards that you'll be pulling. There are these values on the back, and that's how many cards you'll pull, and these give you tasks you must do. So you'll be using your cards just like in standard Crew, trick-taking style, picking these things up, and it really is a solid experience. A lot of these missions are scaled very well based on the player count, and they offer a lot of replayability and a lot of interesting things, and the setup and the learning of it is not that hard, and I love that you're able to pass these objectives. So that's The Crew, the Mission Deep Sea. Next game we're going to talk about here is One Deck Dungeon. I pulled this out to play with my wife Ariana. This is one that she's like, oh, we haven't played that in a while. Let's go pick it up. And we remembered why we haven't played it in a while. So this one here has you playing as a adventurer, and your pair of adventurers, you're going to be rolling dice to complete these objectives. You'll have these cards right here that have a number that you have to hit based on the dice you have. Each character starts off with a little bit of dice. You'll roll them and do your best to match those boxes up. However, this game, you are at the mercy of your dice, and sometimes you just can't do anything about it, and that's exactly what happened in this game. So it's extremely lucky, particularly in the first 25-30 minutes of the game. We rolled dice and we just failed everything, and there was nothing we could do. It was a miserable experience to have no mitigation, no really anything, and it was just miserable. So we looked at ourselves and we said, are we gonna ever play this again? This happens quite a lot, and we decided, hey, let's get rid of this one. And this is actually what pushed me to back One Deck Galaxy. So a little sneak preview there. It's supposed to solve that problem of those low numbers. So that is One Deck Dungeon. The next game that we're going to talk about here is Fireball Island, The Curse of Vulkar. A great game, very fun, very goofy. This is very much a dexterity game first, where that factor of I'm going to throw this marble and hit you is above all else. This is for that take that game style, but it's going to be the entire game. Every turn you're going to be trying to knock somebody over, collecting the treasure, and it is a huge toy factor with incredible table presence. It is just fun. Not a game that I want to play with a lot, but when I do play with it, I have a great time. And this time we actually played without a lot of the expansions. We played with a lot of the new cards, the upgraded treasure tokens, and it was a blast. I think that the more I play this game, the more I really like just that base game core experience. There's not all these convoluted side things going on. As fun as the spider expansion is, I don't think I really enjoy the pirate one as much. It dilutes the deck with a lot of these cards that don't really do anything, and so I found that not as fun. So I really like the changes we made by playing with that core game with a lot of those mini expansions as opposed to the big boards. That's Fireball Island. The next game is SpaceBase here. SpaceBase is another huge hit, especially with families and newer gamers. It's a fantastic dice rolling game. You're going to be rolling dice, activating these columns in front of you, the blue stuff when it's your turn, and then as you buy new cards, you're going to flip these cards around and they'll stack in front of you like so, and then whenever anybody else rolls those, you get the red abilities. So it's a great small engine builder. The best way to play this game, and the way that we only play it now, is with the fast start setup. And this setup, you start with $15, 1 income, 0 points, and you'll have a hand of 6 cards that you draft with initially, and you could buy as many of those cards as you want. It lets you start up with some combos. It lets you kind of customize your choices and your path straight away, and it really lets you dive in, and it's kind of like the Prelude expansion for Terraforming Mars, right? It's going to get you into the game faster, get you planned, get you rolling, getting you collecting resources. It is the way to play it. So it's still a great game, still one that I enjoy, and this is one my wife and her family love, so it's going to get a lot of play here. That's SpaceBase. The next game here is a cooperative game, So Clover. Now, So Clover is wonderful. It's a cooperative party game where you're going to be giving these clues out on these clovers, and then you're randomly placing these things on the board, and you're trying to give a word that's going to connect those two. Shuffle your cards up, add in an extra one, and have everybody guess. Now, this game is absolutely wonderful. I think it's so good. The biggest thing that I would say, the reason it's not a 9 or a 10 for me is because it can really drag. Based on the group you're playing with, there could be people who are maybe indecisive, and it may drag on too long for that. And there's not really much you can do about it because it's a hard position to be in, right? When you're the person who's playing, you don't want to push people to make decisions, but you also don't want to make those decisions yourself. But I think that with a nice nudge and maybe even a timer at some point, that might be helpful. Otherwise, the person who is not actively engaged is going to kind of just be sitting there doing nothing, and that can kind of get old quick, especially when you're playing this a lot and you've got a lot of people to go with. So that's my thoughts on So Clover. Fantastic game, but could have some issues with it taking a bit too long. Now the next game is Hadrian's Wall, and woo, I'm so impressed with this one. This hits all my buttons. It is it's a roll and write. It's a roll and write, but you are simply using this random card flip, and you're going to be getting all of these resources based on this card flip, and then you're going to do your best to create income, generate resources. There's so many paths you can go down, but the big way that you're going to be generating things and making your decisions are based on these cards. So every round you'll pick 2 cards. One will give you some extra resources, and one will give you an endgame scoring condition, and that is so cool. I think it's so well done. You slot it at the top of your board there, and that's the path you're taking now. You're immediately differentiated from everybody else, and I love that. So at the end of the game, you're just going to have this large area full of different scoring objectives, and all of those little mini games on your board now, it's based on what this scoring objective is. This is one where I have barely scratched the surface of this, but I want to play this game all the time. Absolutely love it. This is great. I can't wait to play this more. That's Hadrian's Wall. Amazing. Next is Oriflamme. Now this one is a cute little card game in the vein of Coup. It's a game where you're going to be playing cards into this queue of lines. You'll be playing them, and then at the end of every round, after everyone's played a card, you'll go down the line, and everybody has an option. You can flip your card up, or you can let it gain victory points. And if you do flip it up, you gain all the victory points that it collected. You play 6 rounds of the game. At the end of the 6 rounds, whoever has the most points wins. Very straightforward. However, when these cards are face up, they get to do different things. Now this game is so simple, so straightforward, that when we were actually playing it, we had a bit of an issue. We're like, really? That's all you do? That's it? And it was so good. I was quite surprised at how much I like this game. It is very simple, very straightforward, but I am excited to jump into this more. We played it only once, but the time we did play, we really enjoyed, and it's one that I want to jump back into. I liked it so much, I went ahead and got the Ablaze expansion as well. It offers a new standalone set of these roles that you can mix and match, so I'm excited to see what those offer. So that's Oriflamme. The next game is, unfortunately, one of the biggest disappointments on this list. This is Tsukuyumi Full Moon Down, a large Kickstarter that we received recently. We'll talk more about it on our crowdfunding episode next week. But this one here, oh man. So this is an area control game where you play as a faction that is very unique, but you're playing this very simple game, which is nice because that's nice. The complexity comes from the asymmetry as opposed to the game itself. Unfortunately, what that translates into is the simple game is not that fun. It's okay. I would never pick this game over any other game in the genre. The battle is honestly just not that exciting to me, and it does take a while. It's like sometimes the best options to do are simply just take over an empty spot and just hold their position. This game feels to me like I'm just gathering people to gather people, and I'm not really doing much with them. And I don't think it's going to be one I return to. So that we played just a couple times of the competitive version. We're going to hopefully try the solo and cooperative mode with the Rise of the Moon Queen expansion, and I hope that it's much better there, but we'll see, and once again, I'll talk about it later on our next crowdfunding. So that is Tsukuyumi Full Moon Down, a shame. Next is Startups. This game is so cool. I love this game. This is a very short little filler game where you play as all of these companies, and it's your job to collect the most in a specific suit. If you do, you get money from every other player that has a card in that suit. How are you going to make sure other people take those suits? Well, first off, there's a number of cards in the deck based on the number here. So there's 10 of these 10s, there's 9 of the 9s, so on and so forth. And so when you draw cards, you may put them in front of you, or you can put them out in the center of the table. And when they're on the table, if you want to draw a new card from the deck, you have to put money on those cards in the center. So it incentivizes people to take those cards that have the money that's been collected on them. So that's one way you get people to have them. The other way is, what if people have a bunch of those cards in their hand? At the end of the game, once that last card's drawn, you play all the cards in your hand. So somebody could have a bunch of reds or oranges in their hand, and they might be working towards that. So it's a great game with lots of great little decisions. It has these tokens here, these anti-monopoly tokens that prevent people from getting too strong when it comes to taking specific cards in the center. And I think think it's a great little mechanism, great little game. That is Startups. Next game is Campy Creatures. This one here has you playing a role selection game that's similar in the vein to something with scoring like Sushi Go. You're going to be playing 3 rounds, and as you play, you're going to be revealing these cards, and these cards have numbers, and whoever has the highest number is going to pick first. Now, each card also has a special ability attached to it, and these special abilities are going to do things like take a second guy, negate an effect of someone, but you'll use these numbers to pick the cards. And the cards here have all sorts of different ways to score points. Some just give you minus points. You definitely want to make sure you're picking first. Some are going to give you points for if you have the most, like these teenagers, most teenagers at the end of the round, and then some just score you passive points at the end of each round. And then some give you negatives or positives based on how many you have. Lots of cool things. I really like that there's this cool mechanism called the location mechanic, and each of these cards is going to have this little location symbol. You can use those symbols, and those symbols, if you have the most at the end, you get the special location card here, and it's a special ability you can use during the next round. It's a great little game, really fun, great for the Halloween month, so excited for that one. That's Campy Creatures. Up next is Sanctuary Keeper's Era. This one I've enjoyed a lot, actually. This is a lane-based, 2-player head-to-head kind of card-based game, similar to something like Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone, but this one is really well done in the way it works. So in this game, you have this lane combat, and the way it works is you are trying to destroy your opponent's 4 sanctuaries back here. And when you do that, you win the game. Now, the sanctuaries are destroyed when they're dealt enough damage, or if somebody's deck runs out, every time that they need to draw at the end of their turn, they just destroy a sanctuary. So there is a hard time limit, and it kind of punishes you for digging into your deck too much. The factions are all very different. The gameplay is very straightforward. The cards make a lot of sense. I love the mana system. At the start of your turn, you just get 2 mana, and you can use it on your turn or not, and you can bank it, so that's pretty sweet. There's lots of different combos and neat things you can do here, and like I said, the factions are different. This is one that I do want to play again. My friend Michael has a copy of this, so hopefully next time we hang out, I can go ahead and jump back into Sanctuary. Next is Hate. Same friend Michael has a copy of this, and this is one that I thought was good, but not one that I think that we need to go in the library. Now, this one is a huge campaign-style game where you're only going to need a large group of people to commit to this skirmish-style game where you're going to have this mini tournament. And when you do so, you're going to have these scenarios, and in each scenario, you're doing something that's going to pay off for the whole campaign. You get resources that you can level up your clans. You're going to have these cards that you're going to slide into your different characters that gives them permanent upgrades. And then you're going to take these characters and you're going to hopefully be able to destroy some of your opponent's characters so that they're down a person or 2 in the next combat. So there's lots of different things to think of, but you always want to keep that campaign in mind. And it's a fun game. This is one that I'd love to join a campaign in, but I don't think it's a good fit for the library, but one that I did have a lot of fun with, and I think it's a great system. So next up is Legendary, the new expansion, Legendary Annihilation. This one is really fun. I was quite surprised. The new villains, we have Kang the Conqueror and Annihilus here, and of course we played with the new stuff. We had a new mission, and the new characters here, they work really well with the new schemes. So some of the schemes will have you pulling off with different villain decks, and so it was pretty cool to be able to manipulate the different characters. And one group in particular, which I don't think we'll ever play with again, this is the Heralds of Galactus. They were just kind of over the top in my opinion. So let's just look at Stardust here. If you're familiar with Marvel Legendary, it's a deck builder where you use your stars to buy things and your strikes to punch things, and your whole goal is to defeat the villain 5 times basically and win the game, or 4 times and win the game. They each have their own special abilities to prevent you from doing this, but the big thing is you're just trying to beat them up and win together. This is more, it is a semi-cooperative game. You're trying to get more points than the opponents, but really it's a cooperative game. You're working together to defeat this bad guy, and for a lot of them, you're going to need to work together to actually win the game. Now, Stardust here, though, his effect says you can pay 11 stars to search your deck for Galactus Hungers, and this is basically an alternate win condition where you basically destroy the board, you destroy all the city spaces, and if you do that, you just win the game. And you win, evil wins, and everyone else loses. It's a goofy win condition that if you're doing that, generally you're not helping everybody else, so it's kind of lame, but to play that at your own risk. This is not one that my wife and I really like to play with, so we're probably never going to touch it again. So the other stuff is really cool. Love the Fantastic Four stuff. Really cool. So that is the Annihilation Annihilation expansion for Marvel Legendary. Up next, I'm still playing through Sleeping Gods right now. I have another campaign set up. Been playing through the Dungeon expansion, really enjoying that. Having a lot of fun with it. Right now, I am in the process of healing all my characters. We just ran through another dungeon, and my guys are dead, so a lot of them are poisoned and weakened, and I gotta get my doctor healed so that I can start healing some people, because this is not going very well. So I'm having a great time. We just recently put out a video on the channel about 5 reasons I love Sleeping Gods, and if you want to know more about that game, go take a look at that. 10 out of 10, one of my favorites. Great adventure style game, and I am just loving the stories that I get to tell, and I love how simple it is to pick up and play. This is one that I love to just leave on a table and just keep on jumping into it. It is a blast. I can just play this forever. Fantastic game, Sleeping Gods. Now, up next is Rurik, Dawn of Kiev. Now, this one is a fun one. I'm enjoying this one. My favorite thing has to be that action programming mechanism still. I love buying the different things, but that is kind of a double-edged sword, because this does now make this game kind of fall in the lines of something like Smartphone Inc. or any game with programmable actions. Basically, when it gets to somebody's turn, if that person does suffer from AP or can take a while to determine their turns, they're going to look at everything, they're going to look at all the information, and then they'll make their decision. And unfortunately, the amount of AP that this game provides, I don't think is enough to warrant the actions in the game, because the actions, to me, they're fun to me, but I don't see myself spending 2 hours or 3 hours playing a game where the actions themselves are not that interesting. You can build a building, you can collect a good. I've played games like this, things like Viscounts of the West Kingdom come to my mind, and I just don't think that the payoff is here for a game that takes this much time, in my opinion. So it is a fun game. It is one that I'm going to be excited to play with, but I'm not going to play it with certain people that take a long time to take their actions. When it's a quick-paced game, that action bidding is so fun, and I love seeing those dominoes fall out. That will be a great time, but once again, I'm going to be very selective with who I decide to play this with. Up next, we have Nidavellir. So Nidavellir is a wonderful system, and we finally have played it correctly. So if you saw our 5 rules mistakes videos, this has shown up quite a bit with the base game and the expansion, but I love this game. I love collecting the different heroes and picking up all these different colors. The new expansion with the mercenaries is a blast. I love this game. I think it's a blast. I think it's cool card comboing, and I love being able to evaluate different markets and going for different strategies. And I really do think that the Thingvellir expansion does a great job with incentivizing, making sure you're winning on specific auctions, whereas before you could kind of coast by just using low values if there were specific regions you didn't want to win. Now all of a sudden it becomes every location is great to win, so you have to decide what people are going to actually bidding and when you prioritize getting specific cards, because you want to be first at those mercenary cards. So I love this one. Fantastic game. That is Nidavellir. Up next is Regicide. Regicide is a great little game that you can play with a standard deck of cards. My friend Jeff taught me it, and we had a great time with it. I actually made my own copy at home, and we have the Western Legends deck of cards that we're using for it in our library right now, because can't find a copy right now of the published version of it. But it's a great game of cooperative play where you're going to be going through this deck of cards that has kings, queens, and jacks, and those represent enemies. And so you kill them by using your cards in your hand. And I really like this system. Each of your suits is going to do something. Clubs double damage, spades shield, hearts let you heal, and diamonds let you draw. Great little mnemonic devices here to help you out with remembering what the effects do, and it makes for a fun, compelling little game that I can see myself bringing with a lot of places. So 52 card deck seems like something that I'm probably going to keep in my pocket now. Before I used to bring it on camping trips because my dad knows a lot of these games, but this one seems really cool. Regicide is a great cooperative game. It's got a great solo mode. Quite impressed with this, and one that I'm enjoying a lot. Next, we're going to talk about the game No Thanks. Great small filler game. Not much else to say about this one. It is a classic for a reason. On your turn, you simply take the card in front of you, or you say no thanks and you put a chip on it. Chips are worth negative points, cards are worth positive points. You want the lowest amount of points. But this was a new group of kids, and it was so funny because these kids really just were all about getting those runs and those sets, and I had told them many times that they had taken some cards out at the start of the game, and they were like, oh, we know, but we're hoping to get this card. And they were so impressed and so excited when those cards came out that they were hoping to find. So it was great to see the joy on their faces as they got to play this game and see their combos come to fruition. Fantastic time. This is a great one. No thanks. And then the last game on this one is Fleet, the dice game, played with that same group of kids, and this one was fantastic. They really enjoyed it. So they were very intrigued by the theme. They thought, wow, this is interesting. We get to be our own fleet of ships. We get to choose our own paths, and they really enjoyed the dice drafting. It was great. They enjoyed everything about it, and the way that we taught the game was so spot on. I'll be honest, I'm not going to toot my own or anything, but I was pretty proud of myself. We were able to introduce it in a way that it wasn't overwhelming, even with all of the things that were going on the sheet. And it was so neat to kind of let the children understand and develop their own strategies as they played. And by the end of it, they knew exactly what they were doing. They're having a great time getting money, checking off boxes, catching fish. And the best thing that someone can tell you at the end of the day is, can we play again? And amazing, very excited to keep on introducing people to this hobby and to the space. Great game. That's Fleet the Dice game. Amazing roll and write. And those are the games that I've been playing recently. Fantastic set of games here. Crew, Hadrian's Wall, Fireball Island, some standouts here. But oh man, so the one game that I probably just want to play right now and jump back into is actually probably Hadrian's Wall. I think it's one of the ones that I just was so impressed with. As I said before, I only scratched the surface of it. I did really well my first game. I was able to beat the easy mode at the highest level, so that's kind of cool. That means that at least I have a good grasp of it, but now I'm excited to try all of the different avenues because I only really did one section. I did like the gladiator section. I'm just so impressed. So I'm really enjoying just gaming in general. I'm having a blast, and this is a great month for gaming. October is wonderful, and I'm just so excited to keep on going. So I absolutely love this hobby, and I'm curious, what games have you played? What things have you enjoyed? I'd love to hear what you think in the comments below, and if you have any comments on any of these games I talked about here. But thank you so much for watching. Once again, if you do have any comments on the structure of this video, I'd love to hear that again as well. If you like this kind of 1-minute overview of each game, or if you'd like me to break these up into smaller sections, or maybe just highlight a few of these. I know that we talk about these games on Corporate Cardboard. We talk about 3 a week whenever Dan and I are doing that together. So if you'd rather prefer something like that, or maybe I make a curated selection of a few, I'd love to hear that as well. So I'm making these videos for people watching it. So if you have any ideas on what you'd like to see, I'm all ears. Thank you so much for watching. SideGame Strong.